Emma Christine, a 44-year-old housewife, had spent 32 years in a marriage that had slowly eroded into a hollow existence. When she first married Larry, she believed they were partners in life, bound by love and mutual support. However, over the years, their relationship had become devoid of warmth, companionship, and understanding. Their childless union felt more like a contract of convenience than a marriage, and Emma had grown accustomed to the loneliness that came with it. Larry, a man consumed by his own desires and whims, never spared much thought for his wife. He had settled comfortably into the idea that Emma's role was to maintain the home, cater to his needs, and ask for nothing in return. For decades, she had done just that, until the day she decided she had endured enough. Filing for divorce was not an easy decision, but it was necessary. Despite the inevitable legal battles, Emma was determined to claim the house. It wasn't out of spite but a symbolic gesture. This was the one thing she would not allow Larry to take from her. Surprisingly, Larry did not contest her claim. Instead, he walked away with a dismissive air, leaving her to fight another battle alone. That battle came in the form of an unexpected diagnosis: cancer. Emma, already exhausted from years of neglect and heartache, now had to confront her mortality. She had hoped, deep down, that this would be the moment Larry would show even a shred of concern. Maybe, just maybe, he would realize the depth of her suffering and stand by her side, if only for a while. But reality crushed any lingering hope. The moment she told him about her hospitalization, Larry barely reacted. He read her message, did not reply, and never once visited. It was the ultimate confirmation of what she had known all along. She had been alone in this marriage for years. The days in the hospital were grueling. Chemotherapy drained her strength, nausea and pain kept her awake at night, and the uncertainty of survival weighed heavily on her mind. But in the quiet moments between treatments, she found herself reflecting on her life with Larry. The resentment that had simmered for years now boiled into something sharper: clarity. She saw him for who he truly was, and in that clarity, a new resolve took shape. Then, one evening, as she lay in bed, weak and vulnerable, the door to her hospital room swung open. Expecting to see her father or a nurse, she was instead met with an unexpected visitor: Larry. Her breath caught in her throat. Was this it? Had he finally come to offer some kind of support, even if belatedly? But the moment she saw the smirk on his face, she knew better. So this is what cancer does to a woman, huh? Larry chuckled, leaning against the wall. You look like a corpse. Emma could hardly believe what she was hearing. She had imagined indifference, but cruelty, that was a new low. As if sensing her disbelief, Larry continued, his voice laced with amusement. You know, ever since you got hospitalized, life's been great. No nagging, no obligations. The house is a mess, sure, but I don't even have to be there. It's been a vacation. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her body was too weak to react. She stared at him, unable to form words, as he delivered the final blow. Oh, and by the way, he added casually, I already filed the divorce papers. I'll be taking the house. You won't be able to stop me. For a moment, the world blurred. The betrayal, the cruelty, the sheer heartlessness of it all left her reeling. But as quickly as the despair came, it dissipated, replaced by something else: determination. Days passed, and Emma received call after call from Larry. At first, she ignored them, but when the texts started flooding in, she couldn't help but smirk. Please, let me talk to you just once. I was wrong. I'll apologize properly. Larry, apologizing? It was laughable. Then another message came through. Why did you accept the divorce so easily? Can I come over now? Emma's lips curled into a knowing smile. It was time. Do as you like, she replied. Minutes later, Larry barged into her hospital room, eyes wild with panic. What the hell is this about? Emma tilted her head slightly toward the bedside table. There, in plain view, lay her bank passbook, its pages turned to display her balance. $155 million. Larry's face drained of color. His hands trembled as he picked up the book, flipping through the pages as though hoping the numbers would change. I had no idea you had this kind of money, he whispered, voice shaking. Why didn't you tell me? Emma met his gaze, her expression eerily calm. You never asked. How could I have known? If I had, he stopped mid-sentence, realization dawning in his eyes. If I had known, I never would have divorced you. Emma let out a soft chuckle. Well, that's not my problem, is it? Larry's knees nearly buckled as he clutched the passbook. "Emma, listen, we can fix this." She raised a hand, silencing him. "No, Larry, you made your decision. You walked away, not just from our marriage, but from me, from the woman who spent years by your side, from the woman who needed you in her darkest hour. You chose this." He opened his mouth to protest, but the words never came. He had nothing left to say. Emma watched as the weight of his actions sank in, the regret, the desperation, it was all written on his face, but she felt no sympathy, no pity, only satisfaction. She had spent years being invisible to him. Now, for the first time, she had made him see her, and it was too late. Her battle with cancer was far from over, but her battle with Larry, that was already won, and in that victory, she found something even more precious: freedom. I had meticulously built my fortune, a staggering $15 million, through years of careful and strategic investments. What began as a simple pastime to occupy my spare moments soon evolved into a formidable financial empire. It was my parents who first nudged me toward investing, recognizing my untapped potential. Although our household had been comfortably sustained on Larry's income alone, I yearned for something that would stimulate my intellect and give me a sense of accomplishment. My father, well versed in the world of investments, enthusiastically took me under his wing when I first expressed interest. With his guidance, I began my journey, initially hoping to earn just a modest profit, but as time passed, my knowledge deepened, my confidence grew, and my returns flourished beyond my wildest dreams. Even my father, who had taught me everything I knew, marveled at my success. "I never imagined you'd reach such heights," he often remarked with pride, watching as I transformed from a novice into a master of the craft. Over the span of 6 years, my portfolio grew exponentially, accumulating a wealth that would shock even the most seasoned investors. That fortune, the very one Larry had just discovered, had remained hidden, not out of secrecy, but because I had been waiting for the right moment to share it with him. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. Just as I was preparing to reveal the financial triumph that could have enriched both of our lives, tragedy struck. A devastating cancer diagnosis upended everything, rendering my carefully laid plans meaningless. And in the midst of my battle for survival, Larry, the man who had vowed to stand by me in sickness and in health, chose to abandon me. Without a shred of hesitation, he filed for divorce, severing our ties before I ever had the chance to explain. I never intended for this wealth to be a secret indefinitely. Had I overcome my illness and returned to a semblance of normalcy, I would have gladly shared my success with Larry, believing that together, we could make the most of it. But his impatience, his selfishness, and his utter disregard for my well-being robbed him of that opportunity. Now, standing before me, his face flushed with disbelief and greed, he realized what he had foolishly cast aside. "If I had known you had this much money, I never would have divorced you," he bellowed, his voice thick with frustration. "This is your fault for keeping it a secret from me. You owe me $15 million in the property division. You need to make up for the sin of lying to your husband." Whether it was sheer desperation or blind greed, Larry's demands escalated to absurdity. He ranted and raved, his words dripping with entitlement, as though he truly believed he had any legal claim to the wealth I had built with my own hands. But the divorce had already been finalized, and whatever ties once bound us were severed beyond repair. He could no more claim my fortune than he could change the past. A laugh escaped me, unbidden and sharp, cutting through his tantrum like a blade. The sound only fueled his fury. "What the hell are you laughing at?" he snapped, his eyes blazing with indignation. "Stop mocking me." He had always despised my quiet confidence, but now, faced with the consequences of his own choices, he sought to twist the narrative, paint me as the villain for not disclosing my wealth sooner. "A wife's assets belong to her husband," he argued, as if such a notion held any weight. "You have to give me this money." "I never intended to keep it from you forever," I replied, my voice eerily calm. "I was going to tell you, but you made your choice first. You divorced me." Larry dismissed my words as pathetic excuses, his anger mounting with every syllable. His shouting rang in my ears, grating against my already fragile state. I had fought against cancer, endured the physical and emotional toll of the disease, yet here he stood, treating me as if I were the one who had wronged him. It was almost laughable. "Enough," I finally said, my patience unraveling. "You were the one who filed for divorce. You didn't even ask me how I felt about it, and now, you have the audacity to stand here and demand what is mine." I had always known Larry to be selfish, but never had I imagined he could be so cruel. My heart ached, not from love, but from the weight of resentment that had built up over the years. I had endured so much, hoping in vain that he might show even an ounce of compassion. Yet, when I needed him the most, he had not only abandoned me but now sought to strip me of the one thing I had left. "Do you know what I thought when I found out I had cancer?" I asked, my voice steadier now. I thought, maybe this will make Larry care, maybe this will make him stay, maybe he'll realize what truly matters. "But you didn't even visit me in the hospital." My words struck a chord, but not the one I had hoped. Rather than remorse, all I saw in Larry's eyes was further frustration that his greed was slipping through his fingers. Then, his expression shifted, desperation creeping into his voice. "My girlfriend found out about the $15 million, he admitted, his tone almost pitiful. "She says she'll leave me if I don't get it from you. If I don't have this money, I'll be alone." He hesitated, then added, "You still love me, right? You don't want me to suffer, do you?" And just like that, the final shred of sympathy I might have had for him withered away. So his mistress, his perfect, gold-digging counterpart, had also set her sights on my fortune. It was almost poetic. "You'll be alone?" I repeated, tilting my head slightly. "Then I suppose that's what you deserve." Larry's panic intensified, his pleas growing more frantic. "Please, I'll do anything, just give me the money." His desperation was almost comical, a stark contrast to the cold indifference he had shown when he cast me aside. But I had no more energy to waste on him. "Leave," I said simply. When he hesitated, I pressed the nurse call button, summoning assistance to remove him. A security guard arrived promptly, and despite his continued protests, Larry was escorted out. His final words, shouted over his shoulder, were lost on me. They held no meaning, no weight. He was nothing more than an unwelcome noise, finally silenced. In the days that followed, Larry attempted to visit again, but the hospital staff, now fully aware of his behavior, ensured he never made it past the entrance. Later, a friend informed me that his mistress had indeed left him, unwilling to stay with a man who had failed to deliver the fortune he had promised. And so, Larry found himself truly alone. Meanwhile, I fought my battle with cancer with renewed determination, and when I finally emerged victorious, stepping out of the hospital with my health restored, I felt lighter than I had in years. The burden of my past with Larry had been lifted, replaced with a future that belonged solely to me. Now, I live my life on my own terms, carefully managing the wealth I built, free from the shackles of a man who never truly valued me, and that, above all else, is the greatest fortune I could ever ask for.